Powered by Riverside.
Hello and welcome back to Mindful Minutes. I'm your host, Tanesar Poddar. Now, for the next few weeks in Q2, we are diving into a theme that I believe is going to define not just marketing, but decision making itself in 2026. Yes, you guessed it right. AI isn't just changing how we market, it's fundamentally changing how people buy. In today's episode, I believe it's a starting point of that shift in this discussion of AI series. Let's start by an uncomfortable truth, as we usually do. By the time your buyer reaches you, they have already been influenced by something that isn't human. Have you experienced that? Yes. We're talking about AI co-pilots, recommendation engines, aggregated insights, algorithmic shortlists. In other words, before a human buyer even shows up, there's already been a shadow buyer in the room. And simultaneously, your marketing is no longer being evaluated just by people. It's being interpreted, filtered, and ranked by algorithms. So today, let's break this into two powerful ideas. First one is the rise of the shadow buyer, and second, the algorithm economy. Okay, let's get into it. The first idea here, what we're talking about, is the rise of the shadow buyer, or the shadow buyer in itself. Traditionally, I believe everybody believes the buyer journey starts when someone searches on a search engine, like a Google or a Bing, downloads a white paper or a case study or any other content assets, and fills out a form. That's the usual journey, right? But in 2026, if you're thinking like this, it's already too late. I think before all this happens, before this moment arrives, they've already asked an AI for recommendation. They've already compared vendors through summaries. They've consumed synthesized reviews. And crucially, they've already formed a preference. Now let's repeat that. Before someone enters your funnel, the buyer already has a bias. Not from your ads, not from your website, but from an AI system that has probably read more than they ever could, compared more than they ever would, and simplified more than they ever asked for. Let's re-emphasize this so that we can anchor it. The shadow buyer is doing the research before the real buyer even shows up, which means your top of the funnel is no longer your first touch point. Your content may never be directly consumed, and your brand may be evaluated without even knowing. You are no longer just influencing a buyer here. You're trying to influence what influenced the buyer in itself. That's where the second idea comes in, the algorithm economy. If the shadow buyer is doing the research, then algorithms are deciding visibility. Earlier, marketing was all about messaging, creativity, campaign execution. Don't get me wrong, that's still relevant. But now, it's more about structure, signals, authority, context. Because AI systems don't feel your brand, right? They parse your content, compare your claims, validate your credibility, and rank your relevance. I'm sure they do a lot more than that, but these are the top four. Let's log this in. You are no longer just marketing to humans. You're marketing to algorithms that decide what humans see, which means SEO is evolving into AI visibility, which is why we call it AIO or AEO-GEO. Content is evolving into machine-ready authority, and branding is evolving into algorithmic trust signals. And here's the kicker. If you're not showing up in AI-generated recommendations, now you don't exist in the decision set. Earlier it was if you are below the fourth or fifth SERP results or on the second page of the SERP results, you don't exist. Now, if you're not showing up in AI-generated recommendations, it's like you don't exist in the decision set. Let's see where these two ideas collide. First, we have a shadow buyer doing pre-research. Second, algorithm economy deciding what gets surfaced. So what's actually happening is decisions are being pre-shaped before human engagement, which means discovery is outsourced, evaluation is accelerated, and consideration is compressed. Confused? Okay, let's bring this together a little more clearly. AI is doing the research, which means AI is your shadow buyer, and algorithms are deciding visibility, which is actually what I'm calling as an algorithm economy. So, as a combined reality, by the time a human enters your funnel, the decisions landscape is already shaped. So, what does this break? Probably most of the marketing teams haven't realized it yet, or they're probably just shadowing away from it. How about we make this a little more uncomfortable? The shift which you believe is actually breaking what is existing or traditional digital marketing as of now is this shift is breaking your funnels, the traditional funnels, the attribution models, the content strategies, and even your performance marketing logic. Yes, because all you're doing is optimizing for clicks, visits, and conversions, while the real game is happening in AI summaries, model outputs, and recommendation layers. So, let me re-emphasize this disruption. You're measuring human behavior while influence is happening at the machine layer. And that gap, that's where most marketing strategies in 2026 are probably going to fail if they're not being addressed. So, what should you actually do, right? Let's to talk about a problem. What should you actually do? There's no tactics, there's no tools that I'm going to share. What I'm going to share is, let's say, something strategic. If this is the new reality, then your shift is probably from content creation to content structuring, from brand recall to AI recall, from campaigns to decision influence systems. I hope it's pretty clear. Let's ground this one last time. First, the shadow buyer is shaping preferences around engagement. Algorithms are controlling what gets seen and trusted. Therefore, your job is no longer just marketing, it's influencing the invisible layer before buyer even arrives. Let me leave you with a thought that might just stay with you longer than this episode. What if your biggest competitor isn't outranking you, but being recommended instead of you? In this AI-shaped world, you don't lose when someone chooses another brand. You lose when you're never even presented a choice, right? I hope in this episode you've got the essence of it, because in the next we are going to build on this. We're going to talk about how this AI-shaped world is not just changing who influences decisions, but also how fast those decisions are being made and who's involved in them. Trust me, it's not getting simpler, I know, but until then, observe your own behavior. The next time you ask an AI tool for recommendation, ask yourself, did I just make the decision or did someone make it for me? This is Mindful Minutes, and in 2026, marketing isn't just visible anymore. It's invisible, and that's exactly why it's powerful. Until next time, this is Tanay Sarpoddar. Take care.